You're listening to Compliance Conversations, your inside scoop on all things healthcare compliance, auditing, and coding. Now, let's get on with the show.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Compliance Conversations. I am CJ Wolf with Healthicity, and today's guest is Santosh Kaveti. Welcome to the show, Santosh.
Hi, CJ. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Absolutely. We appreciate you making some time to share a little bit of your expertise and experience. We're going to talk a little bit about AI and compliance, but before we jump into those topics, Santosh, we'd love to hear a little bit about yourself, what you do, and anything you want to share.
Yeah, I would love to. Again, my name is Santosh Kaveti. I'm the CEO of a technology services firm called ProArc. We're based out of Atlanta, Georgia. And we help our customers with their data AI implementations, but what differentiates us is doing it securely and making sure that you know your risks.
Absolutely. And Santosh, I think that rings true to a lot of our audience. Most of our audience, as you know, are compliance professionals in the healthcare space. And so that's our job, is to be concerned about potential risks. We know that AI has a lot of advantages, and it's going to be the future of a lot of things, but we want to make sure it's done in a secure way, in a way that protects our organizations. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. And maybe we can just start there, Santosh. How can healthcare organizations leverage AI, but at the same time maintain a strict compliance and security standards?
That's a really good question, CJ. Look, I think it's fair to say that at this point, most healthcare organizations are leveraging AI in some shape or fashion. They probably are leveraging AI and they don't even know about it.
Right.
So-called third-party risks and shadow AI and so on. One good thing about this AI revolution, honestly, CJ, which I'm actually happy about, it really brought the compliance and security to businesses, and it made this conversation more prominent. This conversation was a siloed conversation, afterthought, reactive, conversation. Now, with the implementation or usage of AI, and everybody recognizing that AI is going to magnify, exasperate whatever the good and the bad, the both sides.
Right.
The bad, the implications of AI, really magnifying the bad is worse, right? I mean, I don't think that organizations will be able to survive that, period. So, and therefore, data security, compliance, security in general has become really more important. And I'm so happy about that, because this is an opportunity to bring security and therefore compliance into the center of day-to-day, center of the workflows, center of the operations. And that, I think, is a fundamental shift that I am noticing, and I'm actually very, very pleased about that. And of course, there is AI for compliance, and there is compliance for AI. It goes both ways, right? But it really all starts with knowing your risks.
Right.
If you don't know what your risks are, then needless to say, you're not prepared. Understanding that AI itself inherits lots of risks from data. The data risks you already had, we're managing somehow. They all, are going to AI risks. Now, in addition to the data risks that AI inherits, AI is beginning to add on several new risks, and some are emerging risks that we don't even know about.
Okay? Sure.
Until recently, when ChatGPT 5 was released, within 24 hours, somebody, broke it, hacked it with a very new technique called echo chamber. Again, I'm just giving you an example, but there are so many new ways that we don't know of, and therefore it's going to be an evolution of regulation and compliance, period.
Yeah.
But it goes back to basics. Know your risks, have a framework in place to manage those risks. And, compliance is a result of really good security hygiene. That's the way I
Right.
look at it, you know.
That's a good point.
And it's a great enabler. It really, you know, differentiates you, has the ability to differentiate you in so many ways.
Yeah.
But it all starts with knowing your risks and knowing your emerging, evolving risks that AI is introducing into
Yeah.
your day-to-day workflows.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. You know, a lot of us in the compliance industry, we rely on guidance from enforcement agencies in healthcare. The HHS OIG has some compliance guidance. And then we also look at the DOJ's guidance. And when the DOJ updated their guidance document evaluation of compliance programs back in September of 2024, they updated some language about emerging technology. So they didn't specifically mention AI, but obviously that's an emerging technology. And to their point, it's what you've just said. It's, you know, if we just stick with the risks we had 15 years ago, we're not very current, right? And so to your point, an important aspect of any compliance program is having an evolving risk assessment process and recognizing new risks as they come up, not just the old risks that we had 5 years ago. And AI is going to be one of those. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what you experience as some of the biggest misconceptions that you see around AI governance in regulated industries like healthcare. Do you have a couple of those misconceptions that you can share?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have many. Uh, One of the main misconceptions is what I've seen, especially in healthcare, as well as in critical infrastructure, is not understanding the risk exposure level or attack surface is one way to put it. Okay.
Okay.
Um, and just because you have a good networking setup or a good segmentation, assuming that you are protected, you know, you'll be surprised. You know, we work in critical infrastructure as well as in healthcare. In critical infrastructure, when you are talking about power generation, where NERC and different NERC compliance comes into play, everybody thinks that, hey, my IT network is really segmented. It's not connected to the internet, and therefore I'm secure.
I see.
You'll be surprised how poor security practices are still, you know, make the entire network, OT network, vulnerable. Same is true with healthcare systems, right? These are all critical systems. The
Right.
consequences are severe when something goes wrong. So the misconception is just relying on traditional security and thinking that I'm protected, especially in the AI world. Two, thinking that because I've deployed AI team, they're going to solve my problems.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm mentioning this one, there are lots of them, but these are I'm particularly mentioning this one is upskilling your employees at all levels on AI and the risks of AI is super important. That's your first human shield. Effective AI team can only do so much. They might be able to help you, but it's
right.
In AI world, you are the hero. You actually have the responsibility. And I'm beginning to see many organizations, and even policy-wise, making decisions saying, look, you cannot say that AI, because you used AI tool, you made the wrong decision. No, you have to take the accountability of the decision. It's on you
Right.
to actually go validate, verify, and have the confidence that this is how the decision was made. So
Okay.
another big area is educating all of your employees and making them AI ready. And it's very different. It's not an ongoing process. It's not one and done. It's not like they can take a simple class and go, okay, just because
Right.
I can write a few prompts, am I AI ready? No, you're not. There's so much more to being AI ready. Just as a normal user, as a business user, what does
Right.
it mean to be AI ready? We have a framework that we deploy, but that's another huge myth is, hey, I have a security team, I have AI team, and therefore they'll take care of it. They'll take care of all the risks now.
Yeah. So, a lot of our audience, they're listening to you, they're compliance leaders. what would you say to them on how compliance leaders should evaluate AI vendors to make sure that they're aligning with either regulatory or ethical frameworks? So what should compliance leaders be doing when they evaluate these AI vendors?
Oh, amazing question, CJ. There are two parts to this, in my opinion, two parts to this topic. One is compliance leaders will have to recognize new risks, as I said early on, that AI now poses. Okay. That's where you start. Without having your risk register, risk assessment, it's very difficult for you to say, what are you, I mean, it's easy to say, pull up a checkbox and say that, okay, this particular, you comply with this particular regulation or this particular rule. But when the situation is evolving, and regulation is only catching up, regulation is not catching
Right.
up as fast as the technology is evolving, right?
That's right.
So the compliance leaders will have to wear a different hat. And it's not enough to just to say, okay, I comply with HIPAA or whatever, CMS,
Right.
FDA. It's not enough. You have to go beyond that. Okay? And really understand AI, build an AI risk register of your own, from your own research, your own understanding, your own usage, right?
Okay.
Now, another big issue here is, given in healthcare, let's just say care provider, hospital, they probably have maybe 10 to 15 applications or systems that they're using to make everything work, right?
Okay.
In addition to their own collaboration platforms that they use. How many AI models do you think on an average are deployed into a hospital these days?
Yeah, I don't know. 5 to 10?
Easily, or more. But do they know
Okay.
that the hospitals know that by virtue of using all these third-party apps,
I
they are
see.
using different AI models that they are subscribed to?
I see.
Do they understand the risks that those models are now bringing into the hospital? Whether it's EMR system, EHR, doesn't matter, even diagnosis systems, what
Right.
AI models are they using, and what risk do they bring in? Okay. Now, the one thing compliance leaders will have to push very hard on is explainability. And I know regulation will eventually get there. I'm pretty
Right.
sure regulation will start pushing for explainability, but
Right.
that's what matters. Now, FDI says now, in one of their recent rulings, they're beginning to say that, look, whether it's a hard device or not, if you use AI somewhere during the patient care, you may be subject to calling that process a medical device.
Okay.
And imagine when that happens, right?
Yes.
Explainability becomes super important. Well, what does explainability means? Knowing what was the representation of your data, what was the possibility of your data poisoning. Okay, so it
Right.
starts with data, then
Right.
going on to hallucinations. This is not the place where you can allow any kind of hallucination.
Right.
Bias, which again is induced by data.
Right.
Okay. And the context and the accuracy is super important when it comes to critical systems. And ability to say, okay, when you prompt something and you get a response, how did you make the decision? Ability to trace back, the traceability and observability is super important for compliance leaders in the future. I think any system, when it comes to critical functions, cannot be deployed if you cannot explain the decision.
Yeah, that's such a great way to put it. Explainability. I like that.
And unfortunately, we're not quite there yet. Very few models today, most of them are closed models. I mean, there are some open source models, but even the closed models, we're not quite there where they can explain, how a decision was made. And that's going to
Okay.
be the key. I think, especially in healthcare and critical infrastructure, we will see
Yeah.
more and more implementations of those AI models that only can explain themselves and are able to audit as the data changes, right? Another thing is you can't afford in healthcare is this thing called model drift. What happens over a period of time if you don't train the model continuously and deploy, as it learns from the real world,
Sure.
your
Sure.
answers are drifting. And therefore, your model accuracy is at fault. And you can't afford that when it comes to, again, healthcare, right? No, you can't.
Gotcha.
But these things is what I would say, keep an eye on it, explainability. It all goes back to explainability, in my opinion.
Well, very good. This is fascinating discussion so far. We're going to take a quick break, everybody, and we'll be right back to talk some more about AI and compliance.
Compliance is complex, which is why you should visit Healthicity's Resource Center. It features updates on the OIG's new General Compliance Program guidance, CEU webinars, and more. Visit healthicity.com/resources today.
Welcome back from the break, everybody. We've been having a really fascinating conversation about AI and compliance, and I know it's on a lot of our minds. And it's a very popular topic. There's conferences that are coming up just about AI and compliance. And so some of us are probably a little further along in our understanding. Others are probably just getting started. Santosh, I have another question about organizations. You keep kind of talking about the future and how things evolve. How can organizations kind of take to a future-proof kind of thinking about their data architecture to support AI compliant innovation? Because we know it's going to become more and more innovative. How do we future-proof our organizations?
Again, really good question, CJ. And look, I mean, in AI transformation times, what happened 6 months ago is now being referred to as ancient times. That's how fast the technology is moving, right?
Yeah.
So unlike before, the future is like 2-3 months away, and that's how fast things are changing. So we have to get there. Good news is that it's not as hard as everyone thinks it is to just have a good data security hygiene and good compliance hygiene. It's really not. You have the tools these days. You actually have a really good setup, and it's not even cost prohibitive. It's not even like a huge cost.
Right.
It's about building that culture, though. It's about making sure that everybody understands what their responsibility is towards the data and towards the AI. What do I mean by that? It's easy these days to establish a really good, data governance program that establishes the owners of the data. See, data quality and data security are super important. If you don't have the good foundation for those two things, I know there are a lot of fancy words there, but data quality and data security, okay?
Yeah.
These two are super important. Get that right, get a proper data governance, basic data governance in place, make sure that you at least identify all your data risks, make sure that your security controls are able to mitigate that risk, okay? And that's a good start. And I would say do the same thing for AI. In AI, though, that AI readiness takes a bit more education and online learning. What does it really mean? When I'm consuming an application and it uses AI, what should I be mindful of? Okay?
Right.
Because ultimately, if I am held accountable for the decision, but AI is recommending it, well, how do I verify? Is it super important? So again, I would say understand your AI risks. And good news again is now we have AI security controls in place. There are AI red teaming. You can monitor prompt injections. You can monitor abnormal behavior. You can do so much both reactively and proactively, even on the AI side.
Okay.
I'll again, this is a bit futuristic. When I say futuristic, hopefully not more than 6 months.
Right.
Wouldn't it be great to have an LLM trained on healthcare compliance for all of the healthcare compliance professionals, such as yourselves, compliance leaders, for them to use it, where it only cares about healthcare compliance, highly customized, super accurate, can explain all of its decisions, but it remembers every compliance that there is of. Now, once you have that, imagine if you could build an agentic AI, which is there's an agent that's running behind the scenes, monitoring every process across the hospital and flagging things real time and saying, hey, this one doesn't seem like this is where you probably are violating some compliance, and
Gotcha.
take a reactive or a quick action to get that correct.
Sure.
So agentic framework, and in fact, is said AI for compliance. There are huge benefits. Now AI comes with own its risks, but AI can be leveraged today in compliance to automate so many things, and to actually build these custom LLMs that you can work with overall.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: you're working with clients, and are most clients, where does kind of responsibility for AI sit? You right? A lot of us as compliance officers aren't data experts. We're not information security experts. We rely on partners like a chief information security officer. But AI seems to be more than just information security. Maybe that's where a lot of it is residing, or are organizations having committees and teams for AI where you have clinical folks, operation folks, finance folks? What are you seeing as probably a good way for organizations just to give ownership to AI, if that's a fair question?
Oh, it's an excellent question, and most organizations struggle with this. Okay, AI truly is a cross-functional
Yeah,
liability and cross-functional accountability. I don't
right,
think you can simply say, "Hey, I'm going to hire, traditional CISO and say you're also now responsible for all things AI." I
right.
don't think it's fair.
Okay,
I'm beginning to see some new roles like CISO equivalent for AI,
okay,
emerge as well. But I think AI governance should sit on top of data governance. It needs
okay,
to be truly a cross-functional team. Okay. And again, if you use education and learning wisely, and you have enough representation from different groups, from administration, from doctors, from labs, and every which way, then it becomes asking the right questions. The governing team should just know what questions to ask, and that's where partners like ProArc can help. And I know security teams are now beginning to train. Like, we're training our own security. We have 24/7 SOC. We have a great
okay,
security program. We're training our own security teams as we create new AI solutions for AI to monitor AI. But
okay.
security teams will have to those skills will have to be upgraded. Your IT skills will have to be upgraded. But truly, it's a cross-functional team. Cross-functional governance. That's what.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I thought the answer would be. And so as compliance officers, we're kind of struggling with, well, then what's our role? Because a lot of us respond, like you said earlier, we respond to regulations. And you mentioned the regulations are kind of lagging behind the technology, right? And regulation doesn't usually come until there's been some sort of catastrophe or some sort of bad event. And then legislative bodies think, oh, we have to prevent this from happening again in the future. So then the regulations come. And so I think a lot of us as compliance officers who usually rely on regulations to help guide us in what we're trying to help our organizations do, we don't have that right now. And so it's just, what would you say to a compliance officer? Where should they start? Should they take a class on AI? Should they, right? Like, so what should a compliance officer be thinking about?
And I would say the compliance community is in a great spot right now. Early on, I said, for the first time, I'm beginning to see the business owners, regular users actually be concerned about compliance as,
Okay.
as they are using AI. I think you're in a really good spot, as you rightly said. It starts with your own AI education. If you don't understand the emerging risks, first of all, understand that regulation will always be catching up. So you
Right.
cannot simply be the
Waiting.
job isn't simply, okay, am I just passing the regulation? No, I think you need to start advising companies beyond regulation to future proof them. Because when the regulation hits, they won't have time. They will not have time, as much
Right.
time as they had before, because AI is moving so fast. Their time is going to be, okay, regulation is today, tomorrow, they all need to be ready to go.
Okay.
So, I can't think of a data governing team or an AI governing team without somebody, a compliance specialist in the team. That's going to be a disaster.
Right.
So you need to have a seat at the table on these core committees, and that's where you bring your voice, because you have wealth of experience. You know what went wrong. You know what will go wrong. You know what will happen, right?
Right.
So that's where I think, yeah. In fact, I would say that the compliance community is really, really good, very, very well positioned right now.
Are there resources that you could steer a compliance officer to if they wanted to learn more about AI and how compliance fits into it? For in other words, are there certain conferences? Are there certain white papers? Are there certain courses? Are you aware of any of those kind of resources?
Oh, I'm pretty sure we use several different platforms other than, of course, attending industry conferences.
Okay.
We're a Microsoft partner. So we get a lot of our Microsoft has a platform called Microsoft Learn
Okay.
for many of their platforms. So we get a lot of compliance information from Learn. We
Okay.
use Pluralsight, and they have
Okay.
excellent, and believe me, I can have my team put together a list and send it over to you. Happy
Okay.
to do that. But there is actually really good information right now when it comes to how where to go just to start your education. In fact, I did this a week ago. As a result of me talking to another compliance, leader, I put together, I went to ChatGPT, of course, 5 is a pro version, and asked it to put together a really good course for compliance leaders. And did
Okay.
a fantastic job in just starting with basics of AI, the risks, emerging risks, pointing it to regulations and saying, these are the courses, these are the courses. It's like, in 2 weeks' time, I think, one could, if you spend 1-2 hours a day, you will actually be in a very, very good shape. So there is a lot of really good content out there.
Yeah, good idea. Well, Santosh, we're kind of coming towards the end. I'd love to hear what your company offers clients in the healthcare space. Like, what do you specifically do? Do you work primarily with compliance officers, or are you working with, the chief business officer or whatever? So I'd like to hear a little bit more about what your company does, and then any last minute thoughts before we leave as well.
Absolutely. So we used to work with IT teams because IT was responsible for deploying apps, monitoring, and also security teams. So
Okay.
that was our primary work. But
Okay.
now we're beginning to work with physicians. We're actually beginning to work with people who are, operationally very active and involved
Okay.
because they need AI and they need
Okay.
partners like us to make sure they're using AI the right way. So we're beginning to see a huge shift, and that's what I really like about it. And they're beginning to ask good questions too, like, "Hey, data risk. What should I be aware of? What should I get trained on? What should my
Right.
staff get trained on? Can you all curate some modules so that we can, make sure we can take some self-assessment, see how are we faring? How are we faring just from literacy perspective? Where are we when compared to other hospitals? Are we good? Are we not good? And so on.
Okay.
It's been a
Okay.
fascinating journey. And for anybody who wants to get into compliance and security, I would say get your fundamentals right. I think you need to be prepared for the day when AI or any other system won't work. It'll stop.
Uh,
See, I remember the CrowdStrike bug that
yes.
got everything. Somebody I knew was actually in a hospital, and I remember the hospital struggling when they had to go back to the manual mode.
Yes.
They were struggling to administer basic care because they had no idea what to do. They were so reliant.
Yes.
That complacency that one builds when you're reliant on the systems, and all of a sudden one
Yes.
day there is a bug and systems all stop. I think
Yes.
everybody should mentally be prepared and be aware of that. Okay, when that happens, I need to be ready. I need to be as good as I am with those systems, and that's what
Yes.
differentiates all of us.
That's such a good point. I got a message today in my own personal life saying our water was going to be turned off for the day, from 9 to 4. And I thought, okay, how am I going to flush a toilet? How am I going to brush teeth? How am I going to? So, like you said, we become so reliant on something that when it's not there, hopefully those days don't happen very often. But if they do, can you do something manually? In the healthcare space, I was aware of a health system that their electronic kind of ordering system went out, and the laboratories could not get orders. And think of it in the
Hmm.
hospital, how many orders are you getting for blood work and
Hmm.
urine specimens and antibiotic sensitivity testing? And the labs, even if they got the specimen, they couldn't provide the results in a timely manner, and so people had to use paper, and that was like crazy. And
Yeah, I
so how
know.
do we overnight develop a process like that? So I'm really glad you brought that up. It's kind of like an emergency preparedness or a kind of having a backup plan if things go wrong, right?
And now more than ever, because of AI, I would emphasize on that. Have a manual process in place, you know.
Yeah. Oh, so fascinating. Santosh, thank you so much. We'll, for our listeners, we'll make sure we include some links to Santosh's contact information and or his company's information so that if people are needing kind of that partnership or that guidance, they can reach out to you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, CJ, for having me.
Yeah, and thank you to all our listeners for listening to another episode. As usual, if you know of a topic that you'd like to hear more about, or if you're aware of a guest like Santosh, somebody with expertise in a certain area, please let us know, and we'll see if we can get them on the show as a guest. And until next time, everyone, take care.